Hey everyone, welcome back to Kitco News. I'm Jeremy Safran. Gold has had an extraordinary year, setting multiple record highs above $2,700 an ounce and continuing its strong performance as December unfolds. Now, with the holiday season approaching, the precious metal is on track for its eighth consecutive Santa rally, cementing its position as a standout asset in 2024. And analysts at JP Morgan suggest that this year's gold surge is about more than just fluctuations in the dollar or bond yields. They're calling it the, quote, debasement trade, a reflection of deep-rooted economic concerns. And these, of course, include persistent inflation, rising geopolitical tension. We got fears of debt debasement driven by ballooning government deficits and a growing erosion of the confidence in fiat currencies like the U.S. dollar. Now, on top of this, there's a global trend toward diversifying away from the greenback, further boosting gold's appeal. To explore these themes and discuss practical solutions for those looking to escape the fiat system, we're joined by Jeremy Cordon, CEO of Goldback. And full disclosure to our viewers, Goldback has been a sponsor of some of our content this year. Hey, Jeremy, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Welcome, and great name, by the way.
Yeah, no, I've never been interviewed by another Jeremy, so this will be an experiment.
This will be an experiment. Okay, let's jump right into it here, because we're seeing this major narrative shift taking place. I mean, some analysts suggest that the reason gold and Bitcoin are trading near record highs is growing public awareness of inflation, how currency debasement works, and of course the role of the Federal Reserve in the process. Now, both assets are seen as alternatives to the fiat monetary system. I want to get your perspective here about what's happening on the ground, Jeremy. I mean, JP Morgan points to the debasement trade as the key driver of gold's gain. But in your view, is the narrative overblown, or is it just the beginning of a structural shift in the way people view money?
You know, I think people are really starting to feel inflation now. You know, inflation was, 2 or 3 or 4%. It was more this sneaky long-term thing. And over the past, 5-6 years, inflation's gotten so bad where now people are noticing that they can't pay their rent, and they're noticing that there's not a lot left over, and they're noticing that, things cost twice as much at the grocery store, and the packs of food you're used to buying are smaller and cost the same or more. And it's really sparked a lot of interest, I think, in alternatives to our current system. People are buying into Bitcoin, they're buying gold, and Goldback has just, the level of interest that we've seen has just exploded over the last few years.
Yeah, the educational aspect of it is almost interesting. I mean, you can almost compare people understanding Bitcoin and gold as a hedge and understanding the structural shift. Do you think that that's what's taking place? People are just getting more educated? Or is it a matter of going to the grocery store and going, okay, this $2 that bought me 4 years ago isn't doing anything for me now?
Yeah, people are definitely getting squeezed, and wages are sticky. People still talk about, a six-figure job the same way they talked about it, 20 or 30 or 40 years ago, that, if you go to college and you graduate, you can get that six-figure job and you're going to be okay. In fact, you'll be doing amazing. And, now there's people, depending where in the country you live, where, people are struggling to pay their rent on a six-figure job, so it's just a whole different world now, and it's really waking a lot of people up and freaking people out.
I want to talk to you a little bit about this latest report I saw, too. I mean, we have billionaire investor Ray Dalio, who's the founder of the world's largest hedge fund, Bridgewater Associate. He's been urging investors to shift their focus towards hard money like Bitcoin and gold due to the rising levels of debt across major economies, which he says has reached a, quote, unprecedented levels and are unsustainable. And we've even heard that from the Fed chairman himself. Now, he made those comments when speaking at a financial conference in Abu Dhabi this past week. BlackRock is also now telling investors to look at gold and Bitcoin in its 2025 global outlook, warning that the world is dividing into competing blocks, with many countries shifting their reserves out of the U.S. dollars and into gold. I mean, we could double down on this. JP Morgan has cited the International Monetary Fund data, saying that the share of the U.S. dollar in currency reserves has fallen to a new low of 57% in the third quarter. So, I mean, Jeremy, is this a permanent geopolitical trend here? I mean, how significant is this for the gold market?
This has been a trend for gold for 50 years.
Yeah.
I stopped tracking what gold was doing on a given day or a given week or even a given month years ago. And the reason why is because the 50-year trend really hasn't changed. The dollar's lost over 99% of its value during that time. I mean, the debasement's already happened, And, it's just the trend line hasn't changed. So if you're interested in saving, you have savings that you care about, you don't want those in dollars unless you're going to use them soon enough to justify the inflation. And, I think more and more people are catching on that, hey, if I have $1 million in cash or $100,000 in cash, that buys 25% less today than it did 2 years ago. So I'm going to park it in Bitcoin, or I'm going to park it in gold. And when I'm ready to deploy those savings, I'm going to, liquidate it and go back into cash. And really, that's what gold has been great for. That's been the sales pitch for gold for the last 50 years, is some variation of, hey, debasement's happening, or maybe hyperinflation is going to happen any minute. And you should really put your savings into gold so you're safe and you don't get hit with that debasement. What we're doing at Goldback is a little bit different. It's a little different than what other gold companies have done for the last 50 years, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to skip the step where you sell your gold and you go back into dollars. We want people to keep their gold and just circulate the gold itself by making gold small enough to, be good at that.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. I mean, the smaller denominations. Okay, we're going to get into Goldback for a second because it's quite the product. I'm excited to talk about it. I know that you haven't been paying attention to gold prices like you just said for a few years, but I mean, it's trading above $2,700 an ounce. It's up 31% year to date, with major banks like Goldman predicting $3,000 price target for next year. What do you think about the performance here, specifically when it comes to gold, Mag? Do you think that gold still has room to grow?
Gold has room to grow if the dollar has room to fall.
Yeah.
If you're measuring gold in dollars, I mean, yeah, gold is always going to grow, but I don't think gold buys a lot more today than it bought a long time ago, and that's kind of the point. And if you own a lot of gold and you're paying attention to the gold price, you're paying attention to the price of gold because your plan is to sell that gold and to get dollars at some point. And honestly, I mean, that's one of two things you can do with your gold. You can wait until it hits that magic price point you're waiting for and you can sell it, or, you can hang on to it until you pass it on to your kids. What people are doing with Goldbacks, and we have the Florida one coming out next month. This is the Florida Goldback here. This is 1,000th of an ounce of gold. It's worth about $5. And we have hundreds of thousands of gold transactions occurring all over the world, where people are moving their money out of dollars and into this form of gold, into Goldbacks, and then they're trading with it directly with no intent of ever selling it and going back into dollars. I mean, you kind of have to go back into dollars because if you don't, you can't trade. And Goldbacks allow you to trade your gold.
Talk to me a little bit about, talk to me, Jeremy, explain to the audience a little bit here about, with those that are unfamiliar, explain Goldbacks and how they differ from other gold-backed currencies and investments here.
Okay, so if you buy a 1 ounce of gold, I mean, you might be paying, say, $2,700. Maybe you're paying 1% over spot, and you're going to get a $2,700 bar. Nobody's spending their bar, right? In fact, you wouldn't even recommend for someone to trade or spend their bar because it could be counterfeit. The pedigree of that bar matters. And, how many $2,700 transactions do you do in a day? So the Goldback, what we do is we take an ounce of gold, we split it into 1,000 pieces, and it's a series. So this is a 1, and it's got a fifth as much gold as the 2. So this has 5 times the amount of gold as the 1, costs 5 times as much, so they're all fungible with each other. This guy here, 25, it's a 25. It's got 5 times as much as the 5. And now we're going even further, because really up until now, nobody's effectively split an ounce of gold into 1,000 pieces that are marked and have never been counterfeited. I mean, this is, if you wanted to go this small, you used to be paying, maybe 600% over spot. And we've got the process down to, closer to 100%. So we're really proud of that. And we've actually advanced it even further. This here is 1/2000th of an ounce of gold. This is a $2.70 gold product today. And it's designed for small transactions. You can tip your waitress at the restaurant with one of these. You can go to a garage sale. We're finding that about half of small business owners are willing to take payment directly in gold. And there's people today that have already ditched the dollar and are making most of their purchases with gold directly, with no intent of ever selling their gold and going back into dollars.
Yeah. Have you seen the popularity of this, really spike in this past year with the inflation numbers sitting here sticky? I mean, we had the latest inflation numbers from November show up and the consumer price index ticked up to 2.7%. It was kind of in line with Wall Street expectations, but it was higher than October's 2.6. When we strip out volatile food and energy prices, it rose 3.3% on an annual basis in November. I mean, how much is this about inflation here, Jeremy?
Some of it's about inflation. Other people are they're tired of the program. I mean, they don't want to, and there hasn't really been a great cash-like alternative to dollars for most people. I mean, even Bitcoin is, great as Bitcoin is and as, much good as it's done everybody. It's not, even I don't think Bitcoin advocates would argue that it's super convenient for a cash-like transaction or in a brick and mortar. You're pulling out your smartphone and, you're typing in a 40-digit wallet ID and you're waiting for it, to transact. It's all reliant on the internet. Whereas people using Goldbacks, I mean, you can hand somebody one of these and you're done. And it's just like cash. In terms of popularity, Goldbacks have been going up in popularity exponentially. They've only come out like 5 years ago. And now there's over $200 million worth of Goldbacks. We've introduced over 1 million first-time users to gold through Goldbacks, and a lot of them are younger people. But because it's a private transaction, we don't really know if people are circulating Goldbacks, except for we have a calculator to help people calculate how many Goldbacks they owe on a given transaction on Goldback.com. So if you go to Goldback.com, there's a calculator. You can calculate out your transactions. We don't track individuals, but we do have data for the whole site. And just in the last year, we've seen over 100,000 Goldback transactions running through that calculator, and that's all over the United States and to a smaller degree the rest of the world.
Interesting. Okay. So, I mean, is this why more people are choosing to leave the fiat system and are looking at, Goldback, which offers seemingly a sound money option for the first time here? I mean, how feasible is it? Can you spend it? Can you get off the US dollar with this thing?
I mean, if you're really determined, you could, and there's always those people, and there are a handful of people that, they do 80 or, percent of their transactions in Goldbacks. Maybe they can't get their utilities or their insurance quite with it yet. But a lot of businesses are stepping up and they want to be featured on our website as preferring to take gold as payment. And, this trend has really exploded in Utah where we started. We have 8 businesses that want to be featured as taking gold as payment in the form of Goldbacks for every one business in Utah that's featured as taking Bitcoin in payment, to give you an idea of just how popular Goldbacks are becoming.
Yeah, wild. Okay, talk to me a little bit about Goldbacks and how they're different from other gold-backed currencies or investments, because it seems like a pretty unique one here.
So if you can buy bars, right? I mean, you can buy gold in the form of coins and bars, and you can store it with a third party, or maybe in a safe in your home. But again, really, I mean, what people are doing with those is they're sitting on it and they're going to sell it later, because there's not a lot to do with gold other than to store value, I suppose. And, Goldbacks are different because you could store value with the Goldback. When the price of gold doubles, the price of the Goldback doubles too. There's not a huge downside to owning a lot of Goldbacks. We see some people turning in and trading bars and coins for Goldbacks. But the Goldbacks have the extra utility of being very spendable. So initially, a lot of the people buying these were people that were worried that the dollar was going to fall apart tomorrow, and they wanted to have a spendable form of gold, in their home, just so they could, have a functioning money. And now we're seeing just a bigger and bigger uptick of people using them today.
Interesting.
And, they're circumventing the dollar. They don't want to use dollars. They want to use gold. And, people are weaning themselves off the dollar system.
Yeah, we're seeing it very quickly, as we can see by the headlines too. Okay, well, then, Jeremy, who's using Goldbacks? I mean, are you seeing more interest from younger generations? Is it primarily driven by older demographics? Because you and I were discussing briefly before going to air that the Western investor, when you look at the statistics and the data, they haven't really come to the marketplace yet. A lot of people waiting. The East has been taking over here. Are they back?
It's we have an older demographic that really understands precious metal. And they understand it because when they were kids, precious metals was the money. In the 1960s, we were circulating junk silver, and that generation is very connected to gold and silver as money. And the younger generations, people, my age, in their, 30s, 40s, 20s, a lot of them are buying, cryptocurrency. But the Goldback, most of our customers are younger. Most of the people, 3/4 of the people that we've introduced to the Goldback are under the age of 50, and they're first time gold owners. So they're brand new to this space, and they're discovering the rest of the space. They're discovering coins, they're discovering bars, they're discovering numismatics and ancients, but they're coming in with Goldback, and because to the average person, I mean, this makes a lot of sense. In fact, the people that have the hardest time with the Goldback, ironically, it's not, the regular Joe, running a garage sale. It's the older investor that's been taught for, 50 years that they want to buy gold for spot price, and anything, above spot, you're throwing your money in the fire. And, I have to kind of sit down with them a little longer and say, okay, are you really sure that, 100% over spot or double spot isn't fair for 1/2000th of an ounce, and kind of coach them through it. But everybody else.
Can you coach us through that premium? I need to understand that premium a little bit, because obviously, as I mentioned, $2,700 today on the U.S. spot price. What does that translate with the Goldback? I mean, talk to me about the premium here.
Yeah, it's about double. I mean, if you're buying Goldbacks, you're paying double spot. And I mentioned earlier that we're really proud of getting it that low, because it used to be for 1/1000th of an ounce that the only way to go that small was to have a little teeny tiny bar the size of your fingernail. And you were paying between 250 and a 600% premium, and that's just the rule with anything. If you have a 10th ounce coin, you could be looking at 15, 20, 25, 30%. And if you split that 10th ounce coin again into 10 pieces, it's probably more like 60%. And you don't really want to own 100th of an ounce coin because it's too small. And, we take that and we split it by 10 again, and then we split it by half. And all the Goldbacks are fungible with each other. So, a 5 is equal to, 10 of the halves. So whereas, with coins, 10th ounce coins do not equal a 1 ounce gold coin, because they have different premiums and they're not fungible anymore in terms of, using them together.
How does the exchange rate, what is it? Explain how this works with the US dollar, how it goes up with gold prices.
So the exchange rate is pretty closely tied to spot. I mean, right now, anyone that's been using Goldback for the last couple of years will know that Goldbacks are more or less just double spot. And they can go into goldback.com, they can see the price. If gold goes up 10%, Goldbacks are going up 10%. If gold goes down 10%, Goldbacks are going down 10%. That's kind of how it's structured right now.
I find it interesting.
Trying to make it easy for people.
Yeah, I mean, I find it interesting too, because people are almost choosing to spend Goldbacks rather than holding them as an inflation hedge like traditional gold. Is that what I'm kind of hearing?
There's some companies like Alpine Gold, and they will vault your Goldbacks, and there's a very tight spread. I think it's 0% on the first 10,000, and then it's 5% after that. So there's people that will buy a lot of Goldbacks as an inflation hedge and vault them like they would other forms of gold. And there's other people that are buying Goldbacks to spend them and use them, and it's just kind of like an inflation-proof cash. Mm-hmm. So, we're hitting different niches, but they are liquid. It's not like people are buying Goldbacks and trading them for the melt value or selling them for the melt value. If you're buying a Goldback for, $5.50, that's what you're spending and using it as.
Yeah, and I know that you guys are getting more and more popular too. I mean, I saw when we were looking at an image of you there, I could see Florida in the background. I know you're there. If businesses want to accept Goldbacks, how can they? I mean, what's the process like? I know that you recently launched in Florida.
No, we are launching in Florida. We have that coming up next month. That's our biggest state by far. And it's quite the project. So if you have a business and you'd like to take Goldbacks, I mean, obviously you can do that right now. And we know that most Goldback transactions are just occurring at small businesses. They're occurring between individuals. But we also have businesses that want to feature themselves as preferring to take Goldbacks, and they want to connect with customers that are also into precious metals. And you can go on goldback.com and you can feature your business and we'll advertise you, actually. In the state of Florida, we're running a promotion now where we will give you a promotional Goldback in the state of Florida if you happen to be a business owner down here. So we're running that right now.
Okay. It's fascinating to me, this whole product. I mean, talk to me about the products that people are actually buying with these things when it comes to day-to-day activities. I mean, you literally use this money.
I think the bigger question is what people aren't buying with Goldbacks. I mean, we've got, dentists and chiropractors and people that do home repairs. We have a home builder that'll take Goldbacks as payment, car dealerships, insurance companies, financial services, attorneys. If you look at the featured businesses that take Goldbacks now in the states that have launched Goldbacks, it's just about every type of business you can possibly imagine. And again, I say that about 50% of small business owners, when you talk to them, not their secretary or their entry-level worker, but if you talk to the business owner, half of them are willing to take gold as payment for goods and services. So the opportunities to do it are just endless. I actually carry my Goldbacks around me. I've got a wallet, and I carry my Goldbacks with me because. And my wallet's almost empty. I have to refill it all the time. You'd be shocked at how often opportunities come by. I mean, I walked by a Salvation Army guy the other day at the grocery store, and I gave them a 10 Goldback, and I got to explain to everybody there, the kids around there, and the adult running it, what it was, and they were all excited, and I gave that one out as a donation.
Sweet.
This morning, I gave a Goldback out as a tip at a restaurant, and the waitress got really excited. This is so cool, this is real gold, and that's,
It's clear people are getting more and more excited about alternatives. I mean, when you talk about it there, how many have you sold? I mean, it seems like this is pretty popular all of a sudden.
It's growing quite a lot. I mean, right now we're right around the $200 million mark in terms of the value of all the Goldbacks out there. And if you look at the curve from year to year to year, from 2019 to 2020 to 2021, you see this exponential growth curve in growth. And that's kind of what you want to see when you're running a business like this. It's really taken a life of its own where, I think that'll continue.
Yeah. Jeremy, you mentioned that, this rise of Bitcoin is another example or a symptom of de-dollarization, as we've seen around. I mean, people are very excited about the $100,000 barrier. But in places like Utah, for instance, more places accept Goldbacks in Bitcoin. Talk to me a little bit about this.
Well, Utah, but if you look at the early Bitcoin adopters, they have a festival in New Hampshire called PorcFest. And there's a whole bunch of libertarians there. There's thousands. And they were some of the early adopters of cryptocurrency. I mean, they were spending Bitcoin in 2013 and 2014 before most people had heard of it at their festival. And if you go there today, they're all using New Hampshire Goldbacks. And, if you ask them why, it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to, hand somebody a Goldback that they know is worth $5 and be done with it than it is to pull out your smartphone and then, log into your Bitcoin account and then, get there. And, there's a lot less friction. So if that's a bellwether in terms of behavior, I think that what we're going to see is that over the next, decade or two, people will gravitate towards what's easier. And, we have a very cash-like alternative currency. And that's not to knock on Bitcoin. I own Bitcoin. Yeah. I'm a fan of Bitcoin, but we're definitely filling a different niche than Bitcoin is in the alternative currency space. And, some people are saying that, the Goldback is kind of the precious metals version of Bitcoin, in the sense that it's meant to be transactable and it's meant to be an alternative currency rather than strictly a store of value.
Yeah. And talk to me a little bit about the tech and how you manufacture them too, because I know that, obviously there's a lot of counterfeit coins out there. You got some pretty interesting IP here on the tech side.
Yeah, some people have the impression that it's like one of those giant penny roller machines. You ever see those? You get you crank it and it flattens it out, and that is some sort of foil product. But it's a lot fancier than that. The technology behind the Goldback is the same technology that puts gold in microchips in Taiwan. It's the same technology that puts gold in the helmets of spacesuits. It's called vacuum deposition. And what you have is a machine that's about the size of the room that I'm sitting in. And it's a deep space vacuum chamber. You have a 50-pound slate of gold that's getting hit with the plasma ray. And it creates a field of gold as a polymer rolls through. And they can measure quite precisely just how much gold is being deposited onto that polymer that's rolling through. And then it gets sealed in. So there's polymer on both sides that are protecting the gold. It's like a gold sandwich. So every Goldback is unique. Every single one has a serial number. And up until this date, the technology's been out since 2012. Since 2012, there hasn't been a single counterfeit. Wow. It's, the bar for counterfeiting is just far too high, and we're making it higher all the time by introducing new high-level security features into the process.
Interesting. Not a single one yet. Okay, well, what kind of feedback? Yeah, wow. Okay,
Not even one.
What kind of feedback are you getting from customers? I mean, I know that there's a 1, 2, 3. Obviously, there's different denominations. Are people wanting more?
Yeah, we're launching new denominations in Florida. We started with a 1, 5, 10, 25, and 50. And then in Florida, we added a half denomination, 2, and 100 denomination for the series. So now we're up to 8 pieces, and people are excited. I feel like we've really upped our game with the denominations and the artwork. We're seeing quite a boost in social media, online communities that follow the Goldback. There's a lot of content there now, and there's a building excitement. I mean, once Florida's out next month, we're going from 3% of the country that have a Goldback with the name of their own state on it, right, to 10% of Americans are going to have a Goldback with the name of their own state on it. And of course, you could buy a Goldback if you don't live in one of those states, and you can use it outside of one of those states. But people get really, really excited when their state's name is on the Goldback.
Yeah,
and we see much higher activity in those states.
Okay, so talk to me here, where you're going. And if somebody that's watching wants to start using Goldbacks, what's the best way to get started?
I'd hit goldback.com. Not a bad place to start. We've got a list of places that sell Goldbacks. We've got, lots of videos. You can check out our social media. It's not a bad way to kind of, discover the whole Goldback space. In terms of where we're going next, we want to speed up. We've kind of been doing one state a year. Florida is our 6th state for a Goldback state. I'd like to go a little faster in future years and speed up and get more states with their own Goldbacks going forward.
Yeah, no slowing down now. I'm just curious, before I let you go, Jeremy, we've seen the prices skyrocket on the gold on the spot side, but where's the trends? Are people looking for half of this thing? Are they looking for ones, or do they want like a 10 or 100? Do they want a bigger denomination right now?
That's a really good question. So we got data in just barely for the Florida pre-sales. So Florida's selling now in pre-sales.
Right.
And we're finding that about 40% of all of the weight of the Goldbacks being sold are in hundreds and fifties. And a lot of people buy the one Goldback. The one Goldback is super popular. It's a $5 product. About half as popular by weight is the half. And then it's evenly distributed kind of through the rest of the Goldback denominations. So we've got lots of different types of people buying, but every different denomination we're putting out there is proving to be popular.
Fascinating. Well, no slowing down now, man. Thanks. Jeremy Cordon is the CEO of Goldback, joining us today from Florida. Thanks for this, Jeremy. Happy holidays. Fascinating. I'm excited about your Florida launch.
Yeah, me too. We'll see how it goes. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Thank you. I'm Jeremy Safran for all of us here at Kitco News. Thank you for tuning in. We got great content ahead of the FOMC meeting and all this data to get through. So stay tuned, hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.